I'm no longer mad at my dad.
Trank? What's that?
And sometimes I sneak the message into the prayers.
I love how you position this. Rich, what's going on, man? Welcome to Dad Edge. Good to have you, brother.
Thanks for having me, Larry. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to have you. I know one of the things, basically the main thing we're going to talk about here is how do I talk to our kids about drugs? I mean, the drug game has changed a lot since you and I were younger, right? As far as like things that are dangerous, things are laced with and all that. But before we jump into that, how did you even get involved in this space?
In treatment?
Mhm.
That was in 2004. In 2004, I started a men's sober living, and I realized very quickly that I was operating illegally because I was providing therapy. You're not allowed to give more than you promised, believe it or not. That's called treatment. So I went and I got my license, and I was licensed in 2005. And I owned a place called Cliffside Malibu, and I sold it in 2018. And then, I had a non-compete for 5 years, and I've been back for a year and a half, and it's the best time of my life.
That's awesome, man. So how did you even get involved with this space in the beginning?
Well, because I started getting loaded at 12, and then for the next 25 years, I struggled with drug addiction and alcoholism. So I lost 2.5 decades. And then for the last 21 years, I've been sober. And I was one of the worst drug addicts I ever saw. I was smoking an ounce of cocaine every single day, no matter what. Um, and I would do it for about 6 months at a time. And I'd be up for 6 to 8 days on average, eating a Big Mac once a week to keep myself alive. I'm a buck 90 right now, and I was a buck 47 dripping wet,
Oh,
and thought I was gorgeous, by the way. Uh, man. Uh, but my teeth were all cracked and broken, right? So I guess I was gorgeous with my mouth shut. Um, that's the kind of life I lived. And, when I figured out how to get sober, I was so bad that, my nature is to help and be of service, right? But not just to be of service, like I'm of service, right? It's like with the heart of a servant, okay? That's how I do it. And that's the culture we have here at Carrara.
wow. So so at 12, what was going on at 12?
Well, I went into my father's drawer and stole his pot, right? And, I was ADHD, and I was dyslexic. So I'm in a classroom at second grade, right? And I can't read. I couldn't read when I got out of high school, okay? But I certainly couldn't read in the second grade. And I'm copying off the girl in front of me because I can't hear, right? What she's saying. I'm daydreaming, I'm doing whatever, right? And, they're shaming you for it. And I get home and I hand this envelope to my mother, who then gives it to my father. And he wakes me up and he says, "Why did you cheat?" And I said, "I didn't cheat." And he smacked me real hard. And this went on for 15 minutes because I wouldn't fold, until finally he opened the letter and it said, "Is this your writing?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm going to read this to you, okay?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, and he reads out, "Hi, my name is Julie Brown, and I spent my summer in the brownies." That I couldn't read it, but I could copy it. Okay. So uh, I've always had a hard time, right? And yeah.
Man. So did it really just stem from a lot of the stress and pressure that you just trying to fit in as a kid?
Yeah, you always have that stuff. But for me, I always felt like, and you hear this all the time from the podium, but I really did feel like a fraud, right? I mean, I wasn't likable. I had a horrible model. So my thing was, I treated you bad to make myself feel good because I didn't know another way. That was my model. And until I got to AA and it was pointed out to me, hey, baby, you don't need to do that, right? Let's pull everybody up. And that was a spiritual experience to me. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah. And, that freed me up to start helping everybody and not, um, uh, you're young, so you have a healthy narcissism, but you get to a point where it's no longer healthy, right? And so, you know what they say, it's true. You cannot be of service to someone the way I'm of service, which is with a pad and paper, taking all the notes, figuring out what your problems are, giving you solutions for living, writing a schedule for you, going over it, having you sign a contract with yourself. We don't break contracts with ourselves ever. Okay. And um, yeah, that's how I do it.
You said you had a crappy role model or crappy model. Was this your mom or dad?
Yeah, it was my dad. And
Tell me about that.
well, I mean, you look, there were different times, right? But, even back then, you got a strap. You didn't get a cane with a brass handle, okay? Um, you know, uh, I was getting the shit kicked out of me every day, every day. I was fighting all the time. I'd go to school, I was so upset. I'd be fighting every day. And, it was a coin toss. Like I wasn't good at it, right? I just was angry and couldn't stop running my mouth. And then I got home and then I'd get it from my old man. And my middle brother, uh, rest in peace, big boy, um, he got it the worst because he was mentally ill. And my dad didn't have an ear for that.
So when you say was this your older brother, younger brother,
My middle brother, I'm the
middle?
oldest,
Okay. How many siblings do you have total?
too.
Two. Okay. And so I mean, I think you and I were probably raised, with the same generation of fathers, which I think a lot of these things just kind of like, no,
I'm a lot older than you. I'm 58. What are you, 35?
I love you, man. I'll be 50.
Shut up.
I'm serious.
Hey, you're living life. You're living the right way, dude.
Oh,
You're living
thanks,
the
man.
right way.
I appreciate that. Now, it's I was raised, I mean, like, especially like this father figure I had, this stepdad I had from the time I was 4 to 6. It was stop crying, shut up, don't talk about it, man up, grow set of balls. Like that was it. Like that was the direction, right? Um, was your dad pretty similar in that way?
Um, my father was a workaholic. Okay. If I had a nickel for every hour I was forced to sit on my father's couch at his office after school and on weekends and on vacations, all that stuff, I would literally sit there and he would make me watch him work. And, it was bad at the time, but it really taught me a work ethic
Yeah,
because,
I was wondering.
oh my God, it was the greatest thing in the world because even though my dad was not likable, right? Um, I took the good and I left the bad, right? So I'm grateful to him. And not only that, man, but he passed away 2 weeks after my little brother. And I don't know where I got this from, but it gives me comfort. I'm no longer mad at my dad. And the reason I'm no longer mad at him is not because I forgived him. I say I did, but you never fully forgive. You actually have to forget in order to forgive, right? And at least for me. And I forgot where I was, man. You're going to have to edit that. What
No, no,
was it?
you're good, man. You're good. So like you do have to forgive. I think, or you have to forget in order to forgive. Because yeah, I think you can still hold on to things, right? And it can still be on top of mind, still be on your radar of things that went wrong. So it sounds like though you have forgotten, so to speak.
It's
Um,
not that. It's this idea that I have
yeah,
that I got it from that when you die, um, you're fully evolved. You're like at the hand of God, right? And so you're back and you're your best self. So he's not the guy I knew. Now he's his perfect version of him. So that's that's how I did it. And it works for me. And it's organic and it's true and it feels good to me. And I don't know where I got it.
that's solid. That's solid. I really like that.
Here, another good one that gives you a
Yeah,
lot of comfort.
let's hear it.
I believe because my brother, the woman that raised me, which was my housekeeper, who I loved more than anything in the world, and my best friend have all passed away in the last few years. And it's been very hard on me. But I believe that not the people that loved you the most, but the people that you loved the most, when you pass, are there to take you to the other side so that you're not scared. How good is that?
That definitely gives you some peace.
Damn straight.
I just feel like some oxygen just went in my lungs a little bit after hearing that.
Well, I'm on my best behavior.
Um, that's really fascinating. I mean, about, I think we can all take a lesson from that chapter. And I'll tell you, man, I love that visualization of becoming the most evolved version of us, right? And the people that we are when maybe when we pass away, and fully evolved as you coined, and knowing that the person that probably made a lot of mistakes raising you, and by the way, what dad doesn't, is not the person that he is now, and that creates a tremendous amount of peace. uh what was your mom like growing up?
You know, my mom was one of those Karens from the very beginning. They probably coined that after my mother. I'm not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
How much did you pay for that? It was free, Mom. I could have gotten you money to take it. I mean, like that. It's like never good enough. Um, um, very narcissistic. The kids were more of accessories than, it ain't like the way I raise my children. Like, I've never had an iPhone in my hand when, they were growing up. I got down on their level. I made eye contact. The kids are like, right? And they know what they're saying. They just can't get it out. So if you're connecting with them on their level and you just go, that's it. Now they feel validated and important. Then they go off and they do their play. And I don't know if you have kids, but if you do, you'll know they turn around just to make certain you're there because they get scared for a minute. They see you're there, they get fed, now they're secure, and they turn around and they do their independent play again. Okay. I've probably spent 500 hours in early childhood development courses. Those were my date nights. Those were our date nights. Like before we got pregnant, like when we were trying, up until uh, uh, um, she gave birth. And then even after that, we've always gotten support from a child therapist, okay, so that we could be the best versions of ourselves because, we both had tough childhoods and we didn't want to make mistakes. And thank God, when you get well, right, water seeks its own level, right? So the first time I got involved with someone, I was sick. So I married the most beautiful sick person in the city. Okay. And it was great, but I was getting well. And when I got well, we were done. And then I found somebody as I was working on myself that was magnificent. And really, water doesn't seek its own level because she was so much better than me. Okay. But I was good enough to attract a good human being like this and the best mother. So, yeah.
That's I mean, that's really cool, man. There's a lot there. There had to be a ton of work, like for you to, go 2 decades, right? With substances and numbing and using, drugs or alcohol or whatever else from the age of 12. What was the impetus to being sober?
I ran out of money.
So was that your rock bottom then? Ran out of money?
What's funny is people give you all sorts of reasons why they're getting sober, but there's really only two for a guy. They feel like they've got all this time they need to make up for because they wasted it, so they want money. And then they want to start earning. And then because they can't sit with their feelings, okay, they need somebody to fix them. So they'll find a woman or a man, if that's the case, to fix them. Um, I ran out of money, so I wanted to get well. Okay. It wasn't for myself. Okay. It was so that I didn't have to live in Motel Sixes. And then when I ran out of money, grab a boat in the marina to sleep on, just stowaway. And then one day the people came back and I got really scared and I ran out of there crying, right? And this is my life. And I went to a friend of mine. I begged him for money to go to sober living, but I couldn't even take the money. I needed him to walk across the street with me to get a cashier's check because, the second the money hits your hands, they turn into crack coupons. That's the way it was for me.
So what was I didn't even think people could sustain a habit like that for 2 decades. Can you actually do that and live?
No, 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 no. I wasn't smoking crack for two
Okay.
decades. I didn't start smoking crack. I smoked crack for about 10 years straight and on and off, right? So my runs would typically, I'd go till I ran out of money, then I'd get sober, then I'd get, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, make a bunch of money, then go out for another month, that kind of stuff. And if I stayed sober for 4 or 5 months, I had enough money for a year,
Wow.
right?
Weird question for you. What if you could describe the feeling that you get after smoking crack? I have no idea what that is. I don't even think anybody has articulated what that feeling is. How would you describe it?
It's the most euphoric thing you can ever feel, the most. Now, it goes the other way too. If you're into heroin, then that would be the most intense thing. You just get right up to the point of dying, but you don't die because that obviously feels the best. right? Which is why people overshoot the mark. They get purple and they get left in dumpsters. Okay. Um, but cocaine, let's talk about the delivery system first. Snorting gets you this high, smoking gets you this high, and shooting gets you this high. Okay. So it's really all about the delivery system. Now, I'm afraid to stick needles in my arm, so I'd have to have working girls at the house shooting me up. Don't ask. But smoking it, like I can't make cereal, but I can walk into a 7-Eleven with an ounce of cocaine and walk out with it rocked up in front of everybody in the place and be out of there in a minute. 1 minute. Okay. I mean, cocaine is when you smoke it, you get this euphoria. And then if someone is touching you, it's like the world has changed. Okay. And then the idea is to ejaculate while you're blowing out your hit. Never happens, by the way. Okay. But it's what you're chasing, right? Now, the reason nobody explains it that way is how do you say that in a way that doesn't offend everybody and doesn't creep everybody out? But I'm not running for office. And that's how it feels, right? Having said that, if it was a better deal than what I'm doing now, I would be doing that. And I believe that unless you find something equal to or greater than the drugs and alcohol, you can't stay sober. You can't. It's a lie. Because if you're going to white knuckle it and you're going to go through that type of angst, for people like me, we can't take that forever. There's only so much of that you can take before you have to, quiet the mind, right? So for me, it was trying to live like an elegant man and self-care. And that's why at Carrara, we've got the first um, actual world-class spa inside of a treatment center. It wasn't a vanity play. I didn't want to, I'm not that way. The reason I did it was because when I was gone, from after the sale, I worked on myself to such a degree that I had such self care that turned into self esteem, which turned into self love. And I've never met anybody who truly loved themselves trying to kill themselves with drugs and alcohol. That doesn't happen either. Okay. So I just went to the Ojai Valley Inn, which is a top 100 spa in the country, and I walked out with their manager. I asked her what she made, and she said this. And I said, not anymore. Come on, grab your shit and let's go. And we walked out because she wanted a life of purpose.
And what happened with that? Tell me about that.
Well, she runs the spa. So people wake up and they have their wheatgrass or their green drink or their protein shake or their wellness shots, whatever it is. And they work out, they do whatever they want so they can train, weight train, they can do cardio, they can do Tai Chi, they can do yoga, they can do whatever they want. They can go in the pool, right? I've got 3 pools and 2 jacuzzis at my main location. And so we take one of the pools downstairs and we heat it to like 90 degrees because sometimes we'll have, you know, a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old here, right? And they don't move so well. So you get them in the water with the resistance. And because, as we're getting cold. I don't know why when we were kids, we were never cold. Okay. But today, oh, we walk outside and it's like under 60 degrees and we almost start crying. I don't know why that is.
I don't either. I've wondered the same thing myself. But yeah, I was watching my so I have my youngest, I have 4 boys. My youngest is 8 and he does 8U hockey. And I'm watching, I've got, it's probably 50 something degrees in the rink, give or take.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I've got 2 jackets on. And I'm watching these kids of these siblings, running around with like short sleeves and shorts on. And I was like, what in the world? And I was like, you know what? I think I pretty much did the same thing growing up.
That's
But
different though. That's different when you're running
Yeah.
around,
Just running
you'll
around.
eat, so it's no big deal. But when you're
Right.
sitting there watching, you just want to light yourself on fire because it'll feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're all dads, right? You're a dad, you have a 15-year-old, you have 11-year-old, you have a daughter and a son. I have four boys. You know, we've got a huge audience who listens to this show. And everyone's really, really curious, number one, on, well, first of all, how do I even talk to my kids about this topic? How do I talk to them about drugs? And how do I do it in a way where I actually don't. I think a lot of guys out there, I've heard this feedback is, well, if I talk about drugs and if I'm the one talking about it and I don't really have a whole lot of credibility with my kids and I annoy them, am I actually doing them a disservice by pushing them into using more drugs because I made them curious about it? And but I think a lot of us don't truly understand how to talk to our kids about drugs. And I think our approach is probably off. But I would love to know, you've obviously have dealt with not only you going through this firsthand, but you know, you've been an owner in these treatment centers for, you know, 2 decades, over 2 decades. So you really know the ins and outs, and everybody who's walked through your facility has been a son or a daughter at some point, right? And they could have had a conversation. So I'm just really curious, how do we even start the conversation with them? What's the best age? And how do we do it?
It depends on the kid.
Yeah.
There is no cookie cutter thing here. You have to be strategic and thoughtful about it. Um, the reason I say that is people parent differently, right? So I have this relationship with my children that is so close, right? And the reason is because I nurtured it from the very beginning, right? My kids are in the stroller. I'm the one walking them for, 2 hours. I'm the one that took the kids, put them in the car seat, and drove them around for an entire day and took the kids everywhere and always talking to them, always involved in what they're doing, showing up to everything, baseball games, baseball practice, singing this, driving them everywhere to school in the mornings, right? Um, I'm so close with my kids that when I talk to them, um, for the most part, they're attentive, right? And I've had this conversation with my children numerous times, but I'll give you two examples. We've had this conversation a bunch of times, and I have an unfair advantage because, I'm considered to be one of the best in the world at what I do. And the kids know it. Okay. They've heard the calls, they've heard people in trouble. They know that I have to excuse myself for a minute and take care of somebody else who isn't well. And as soon as I get them squared away, I'll be right back. They're very good with that. But I'm talking to my daughter. I'm taking her and her girlfriend, Samantha, who she's known since they were born. And I'm taking them somewhere. And I start talking about fentanyl because I've got Samantha in the car and I love her too. And I don't get to talk to Samantha about it. And my kid rolled her eyes. Okay. And I saw it from my rearview mirror. And I just pulled over and I turned and looked at these two in the back and I said, "Hey, babe, don't roll your eyes at me. I got 14 years into you. And this isn't something that I can come back from. Okay. That's it." So that was one of them. And they got it. They got soft. They took it in. Right. But I had to pull over and spend the time to connect and let them know from my heart what it would do to me and their mother and their brother. And I said, the family system is over. It never recovers ever. We're destroyed, right? But probably the best example is the other day when I dropped off my son And I was talking to him about it. And I said, I know we've had this conversation 100 times, but I'm just scared because I love you so much. And he goes, I won't do it. I said, I know, baby, but let me tell you how it's going to happen. Your friends are going to come up to you with either a pill or some powder or something to smoke. He goes, I won't take it. I said, let me finish. They're only coming to you to give this to you because they know it's wrong. And if they get you to co-sign their bad behavior and use with them, they're going to be less wrong. Don't co-sign anybody's bad behavior, buddy, because I love you. Okay. And I will never get over it. Ever. You're everything to me. When you have a heart-centered conversation with your children, if you've put in the work from the gate to get to right here, right now, you don't have problems. If you haven't put in the work, you better have somebody else have that conversation with them, because as a general rule, every kid thinks their parents are idiots and they don't know anything. Every one of them. Okay. This is the only thing my kids will listen to me about. Otherwise, they think I'm a complete buffoon, just like every other kid.
So your kids, what is the average age, by the way, when kids start to try drugs nowadays?
That's a great question. I was 12. I'm getting anywhere from 12 to 14, 11 to 14. Um, but I don't treat adolescents. So that's an excellent question that I could ask my buddy Chris, who has a place, and I want to recommend it because these adolescent places, very scary.
Oh, I
And
can't imagine.
yeah, it's too much. And the one place that I've always felt comfortable referring, because they're good, decent people, is a place called Visions Teen, Teen, and it's or Visions Malibu, but um, it's the best that I found. And it's the only place that I feel comfortable referring because I know the people and I know their souls are good.
When you say that, so when regardless of the ages, we're I just had Nikki Six on the podcast not too well. It's actually been a couple years now.
Why does that name sound so familiar to me?
He's the founder of Motley Crue.
He's the founder of Motley Crue.
Hmm. Yeah, he's the bassist.
Okay.
Um, but so I think this year he's celebrating 23 years sober. And if you've watched the movie The Dirt or know anything about Motley Crue, like I mean the guy, I know he died once, if not twice, from heroin overdose. But he's been sober for a long time, and he came on the podcast and talked about how to talk to your kids about drugs and that kind of thing. And the I got to be really honest here, man. Like drugs, when it comes to drugs, I'm pretty naive. Like I tried weed, when I was in college and that kind of thing, but like cocaine, crack, heroin, like all that's the hard stuff. I've never done any of it. I don't know even hardly anything about it. But this whole thing with things being laced with fentanyl, like the one thing that Nikki Six said on the podcast, and I'll actually put his interview in the show notes as well. He's like, when I was a kid, and Nikki Six is not too much older than you are. I think he's 62. And he's like, when I was a kid, he's like, we would, grab dad's pot or we would, go grab some beers or whatever. And like, we were just being kids and like, whatever. Right. He's like, nowadays, dude, these drugs, they will kill you. Like just straight up kill you. And, you have no idea what these things are even being laced with. So this whole fentanyl thing, like I know things are laced with fentanyl. Number one, I don't know how. Number two,
Oh,
I
I'll
don't
tell
know
you.
I would love to know, and I'd also love to know what drugs is the laced fentanyl most common in?
Okay, so the way this is happening, right, is they have all these chemicals that China ships to South America. Okay. I know that Mexico's in North America. It predominantly is in Mexico, but then it's also below. Um, so the chemicals go to Mexico, and then you have some guy in Mexico in a hazmat suit. I shit you not. Okay, with an oar, right? That you row a boat with. And it goes in this big vat. They pour in the chemicals and they start doing this, right? Then they pour it into molds, okay? Or to crush into powder or pill form, okay? Now, think of it as a chocolate chip cookie, right? Sometimes when you buy a chocolate chip cookie, you get too many chips. Well, if the chips are fentanyl, you're dead. Right? Now, remember, this is the way the guy is doing it. It's not this milligram here, this milligram here in each pill. None of that noise. Okay. So you're getting pills and powder, some with more fentanyl and some with hardly any, right? When you're doing it. So what happens when you take a bite of a chocolate chip cookie and you've got no chips? Well, you take another chocolate chip cookie, another pill, and now you're dead. So, 70% of this stuff is now laced with fentanyl, right? And
70%?
70, 70%. 40% of the people that come into treatment, I don't think I got through this story earlier. I got derailed. 40% of the people that come into treatment are testing positive for fentanyl when they've sworn up and down they haven't been taking fentanyl. They don't use fentanyl, which means it's in their pills and it's in their heroin and it's in their cocaine. And, now it's even in pot, right? Last year during the AFC championship game in Kansas City, when it was over, they found 4 kids with a joint laced of fentanyl, all face down in the snow dead. Okay, kids. Did I
That's
answer the
crazy,
question?
man. Yeah, you did, but I'm in shock. Man, 70%. Holy crap.
But
So,
bro, when we were kids and you bought drugs, if I went and I bought cocaine, I was getting cocaine. Okay. Now people are getting things that they're not bargaining for. And that's why people are dying.
gee, man.
And it's not just addicts, it's kids trying it for the first time.
Right.
And stupid shit like, oh, I got it from my friend and I trust my friend. What? I mean, that's the worst thing.
Can they put this stuff in THC vapes? Or is that
Yes, they are.
they
They are.
are?
Yeah, but
Wow.
but not from a dispensary.
Okay.
So if you get weed from a dispensary, okay, you're not going to have it laced with fentanyl. Okay. If you get pills from a pharmacy, they're not going to be laced with fentanyl. But if you're buying stuff on the street, it's not if, it's when you're
It's
going to.
when.
Sure, of course.
And the thing is too that, you know, you don't even have to buy it, right? I mean, the thing is you could be around your buddy who bought it off the street and he's doing it and he's like, here, try this, right? And this is where you go back to co-signing on someone's bad behavior as I love that term that you coined. And that could cost co-signing on that deal could cost you your life easily.
And the family is ruined. That's the thing. You're gone. You're not feeling anything anymore. You're not here to deal with the wreckage. Okay. The family and the siblings and the grandparents and the boyfriends and the girlfriends and the close, I mean, everybody is destroyed. Okay. And the drugs today are stupid. That's really what Nikki was talking about. He's like, we did real drugs.
That's
These
almost
are
exactly what he said.
right. Okay. These drugs are bullshit. Okay. I mean, pink cocaine, there's no cocaine in pink cocaine. Okay. It's like and It's different all the time. The different substances, different amounts of the substances. There's no consistency to it. So, the great part about cocaine or heroin is there was consistency to it, right? There is no consistency to this. None. It's all different. And and the strengths are different amounts. So, you've got these kids killing themselves on accident. And that's the scary part.
Why are these things even laced with fentanyl to begin with? I mean, is it specifically to like we just want to kill people, or is it do you get a better high? Like what is it?
You're far more addicted,
Oh, okay.
far more addicted. So if you don't die, you're never going to another dealer but this one because this guy's got the shit you like. And now it's like a speedball. It's like shooting a speedball. Okay. Fentanyl is a downer, cocaine is an upper. Okay. It's like a speedball. And then if you're doing heroin or pills and you take this, it's just a more intense version of that.
So fentanyl actually enhances whatever high you have, I'm guessing.
It does.
Okay.
It puts you higher and it's far more addicting. Here's something that's coming down the pike to a suburb near you. It's called Trank.
Trank? What's that?
It's an animal tranquilizer mixed with fentanyl. And
So
what
like
they
ketamine, like type of thing?
no,
No?
no,
What are we talking about?
animal tranquilizer,
Oh my God,
okay,
dude.
with the shit they shoot up horses with.
Right.
Okay. So they've got animal tranquilizer mixed with fentanyl, and you shoot it. And it's a flesh-eating drug when they're mixed together. So you walking around with these big grapefruit size holes in their arms and legs. And what feels the best is they shoot it in the opening,
No
right?
way.
Hand to God. And they walk around hunched over like this, where their knuckles are dragging on the ground like they're zombies. Trust me when I tell you that's coming.
That's crazy, man. That
And
is
and
crazy.
you would think that would be the end. You would think that that would be a bridge too far. But you know where I realized that there are no bridges too far in my lifetime?
I can't wait to hear this.
Sandy Hook.
Oh God. What do you mean by that?
Okay, well, there's always gun violence,
Yeah.
and everybody just, thoughts and prayers, and they move along, right? But 26 first graders? Really? I thought that's it. We're done. That's a bridge too far. 90% of NRA members wanted background checks. Okay. 85% of Republicans wanted background checks, and we got nothing. Nothing. So, what happened there showed me, okay, nobody gives a shit. Here's another one. I grew up in LA. I never thought I would see the day where our streets look like a third world country with encampments on a sidewalk. This is a different time than when you and I were growing up, man.
I would agree.
We grew up good. We left the house when in sunrise, and we were back at sunset, and we were riding our bikes and playing sports all day long. Okay. There was no computer courage. Somebody ran their mouth. You dealt with it right there. And then you were friends for life.
Yeah. Those are my people. Like, it's crazy, man. We literally just last week, um, my 11-year-old was, I mean, and you're right. Like, I mean, I grew up in the same era you did. You left, when you came home from school, you went out and played, came home when it was dark. If you were home after the street lights came on, that's when you were in trouble. And, they just knew that we were okay. I'll tell you, like my 11-year-old just went out with my 8-year-old, another friend of his who's 12, and another 12-year-old friend. So there was four kids, and they were being followed in our neighborhood by a dude in a black van who pulled over, asked him a couple
What?
questions. Huh? No, not a cop. Yeah, this guy was far from a cop, but just followed him. And luckily, I mean, we've had conversations with our kids, of like, hey, if something doesn't smell right, seem right, it isn't right. So go, and we basically told them what to do, and they found the nearest house that they knew people in, which was right down the street, and they just randomly knocked on the door and the guy drove off. But I'm just like, holy crap, man, this is just like everywhere. But going back to, I want to keep going with this drug, this whole drug conversation with our kids. By the way, the stuff you're telling me, man, like just shows me like when it comes to this topic, like how naive I really am. I want to talk more about how to have conversations with our kids. And by the way, I have to I have to really, really give you some props here because one of the things that we've said over the past decade on this podcast is when it comes to your kids, no matter what you're talking to them about, whether it's drugs, sex, what it doesn't matter, right? Without connection, you have no influence. Without connection, you have no influence. So you have to make sure that you are connected to your kids, that you're inspired, you're encouraging them, that you're in their life. You do life with them, right? You talk to them, you play with them, you form an incredible bond and relationship with them, right? At the same time. Otherwise, without that connection, we're not going to have that influence. So I love that you started there. But like even with
Can I tell you one thing that's coming to mind real quick?
yeah,
That is so important. A little tip. Know the room, okay? Get your kid when he's in the right space to take it in. You may have to lie in wait for a day or two, okay? But why why discuss something if it's going to fall on deaf ears? There's no meeting of the minds. There's no meeting, there's no communication, right? And so I'm sorry I interrupted you, but it was such an important thing that is probably the single most important thing you can do, and you have to do it right away. Also, you want to make certain that you guys are alone. So there is no feeling shame, there is no showing off for anybody, none of that noise.
that makes
Okay.
total sense. When you
Also, you want to get your significant other, if you have one, on board. This isn't the type of thing that you even start discussing unless you're in complete alignment of how you're going to deal with it. Okay.
like that. Let's start out with the first one. When it comes to talking to your kids, read the room, right? And look for the opportunity. In your opinion, what is the prime opportunity? Like what does the room look like when it's read well and we're like, okay, we're good now. We're gonna have this conversation.
Where I get the most bang for my buck with my kids is when we're alone in the car because they're hostages, right?
Yeah.
And for a dad, it's not quantity, it's quality. So all, I try to make everything fun, right? So, like, for example, my son is got this app on his phone and we put a couple bucks in it. Now he's investing and he comes in, he looks at my whiteboard and he's like, let's do my net worth, right?
I love it.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I don't know where I got this kid. The other one doesn't care less, but this one really wants to, be financially literate, right? So comes up, he goes, $3,342. That's my net worth. And this was like a couple nights ago. So this morning or last night, I went to the house and I saw him and I go, what's your net worth? He goes, well, I said, you don't know. And I screamed, I go, you don't know your net worth? Go upstairs and get me a belt with a buckle on it. And he started laughing hysterically. He just laughed. He came in, he gave me a hug, right? He started kissing my chest, right? It's like when you have a good relationship, right? Like I tell my kid, hey, say hello to this person. Look up from your screen for a minute. And he didn't hear me. And so I said, talk to this person, say hello to this person, or I'm throwing away your toys. What, Daddy? Oh, hi, nice to meet you. Right? It's like you have this interaction with the kids that, I do it a little differently. Like my ex does it, straight and narrow, just like the early childhood development courses and, the mirroring and everything else. I have that note. It's just sometimes you need to slap someone to that's the intervention, right? Just to change their state. I don't mean physically slap my kids. Okay. But right. But shock their system a little bit, get their attention and go from there. Um, I hope I answered that question.
No, you really did. Excuse me. I uh I think it's really important to make sure you're reading the room right. And by the way, I love conversations in the car. I really, really do because I think if we're side by side, we're not nose to nose, toes to toes, especially with our kids who are like, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. We're bigger than them. We have a deeper voice than them. We can be kind of intimidating, but in the car, we don't have to look at each other. We can have deeper conversations. I love having conversations like this in the car, on a walk, things like that. Um, I love how you position this with don't co-sign on someone else's bad habit. I just love that, right? Because it's not just be like, hey, it's because I told you so, or because it's wrong, or it's because all these other things. It's like you're helping that kid identify a bad habit or even a weakness that somebody else is dealing with, and they're trying to get you to do it because they just want to feel better about what they're doing. And how you can make a strong, confident, resilient kid is no, you're above that. Like you're stronger than that, right? You can make better decisions. You don't have to go along with someone who needs you to go along with them, so just that they can feel better. So
That's right.
I really love that. Um, I I know that this is a continual conversation. It's not just obviously a one and done. So I'm curious as I see how you tee this up, this conversation with your son, with your daughter. How do you keep the conversation going without saying necessarily the exact same thing over and over again?
Um, I'm the king of workarounds, right? So I do it in different locations, in different places. So, for example, my son and I still sleep. He sleeps over 3 nights a week. Um, and he still sleeps in my bed, right? Which I hope every time he sleeps in my bed, I'm wondering if this is the last time, right? And it's like I just love my kids, right? So much that I love that time. And before we go to bed, we usually fight, right? Because I'm a good father and I like to get my kid riled up before bed,
I love that.
right? And they also eat dessert first and they play ball in the house. And if they don't break something when we're playing ball in the house, I get pissed because you're not playing. If you're not breaking shit in the house, you're not playing. Okay. I mean, my parents never let me play ball in the house. They never let me eat dessert first. So I try to get my kids to do that. And they just look at me like I'm insane. Dessert first. Um, yeah, I forgot the whole question. Swear to God.
No, that's okay. Just how you keep which by the way, real quick, I always like to kind of like add in these like little nuggets and that kind of thing. So roughhousing, right, before bed seems opposite, right? But it actually has the intended effect of actually being able to help your kid relax a little bit. So if you're a little rough with them, like my 8-year-old, it's
Mhm.
really weird. I just learned this. He's like, will you tick? He's laying in bed. He's like, will you tickle me? And I'm like, are you serious? You're about ready to go to bed. He's like, it helps me relax. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way this helps you relax. And he's like, no, it does. It tires me out. So like every night I tickle the kid to death. I wrestle with them. I like kind of like, rile him around and like throw him on the bed and like I do all this other stuff. And I just researched it not too terribly long ago. I was like, is it good to roughhouse with your kids right before they go to bed? And studies have shown it actually raises oxytocin in kids, so that like that love hormone, and it actually helps them actually somehow some way actually helps them calm down. I guess is because for them that's the feeling of love and affection and all that other stuff and playfulness. So for them it actually calms them. I had no idea. So I love the fact that you do that. But having
Best
this
best part about that, by the way, just to get there finally, is um, when you're done with the fighting or the tickling or whatever it is, I always take his hand and we do our prayers, right?
same, I do the same thing. Yeah,
And sometimes I sneak the message into the prayers. So I'm talking to God. I ain't even talking to him, but he gets to hear it. Pretty cool, huh?
that is awesome. I love that, man. That's a home run. I love that. But yeah,
When when
I'm
you're
gonna
eating,
do that.
yeah,
I'm gonna do that more
you
after
got it.
hearing that. Yeah,
You got to. And if you want your kids to be comfortable and have the support when nobody's around, you better introduce them to God.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. Um, does the conversation change as the kids get older? So, like, does a conversation with an 11-year-old, like where we just talked about, having, we're not going to co-sign on somebody else's bad behavior. This is why they're doing it and all that. But as the kid gets, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, like, how does this conversation evolve?
Oh, it's very easy. I do the shocking thing with my kids, right? So I'm a little spicy or a little edgy. So, my daughter, I was being a little bitch the other day, and my 15-year-old looked at me and she goes, should I go get you a tampon? Right? Because I was whatever. Okay. And I was like, what did I say to her? Hold on a second. Your editor is working overtime.
You're good, man. You're good.
What was the question? Just ask it to me.
No,
I'll
yeah, just as the so as the kids get older, right? Like, I mean,
oh,
I love this simplified version of what you're talking about. Like, I could see me having a conversation with my 11-year-old, but when it comes to like our older kids, like even like the kids who are driving, like the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, right? How does this conversation around drug use change?
okay. So like I talked to my daughter the other day and I was talking to her about fentanyl and she gave me that statement. And so I said, this is how I talked to her. I said, baby, I said, don't make me duct tape you to a coffee table and feed you out of a dog bowl. And then she laughed
What?
and I walked out the door, right? Because what I'm doing in that moment is I'm letting her know, okay, that her insanity is going to be met with my insanity. Okay. My kid's will is not stronger than mine, and it's never going to be stronger than mine because although they're hardwired to love their parents, we all are, kids are never going to love their uh, uh, parents the way parents love their children. You don't even know what love is until you have a child. You think you do, but you don't. And people without children get pissed off. Just go have a child, okay? So you can live a full life. Because unless you express the love for a child, you don't know you have it. And that's the biggest crime you can have. Biggest shame, the biggest crime, whatever. You
I
know,
do that with my older kids all the time. Like I'll just add in some shock factor like that, like just to mess with them. And it's always cool. It's always funny because like it breaks the ice. Like we're not being so serious. We're doing like that. And now granted, I have boys, so it's like it's banter, you know,
Yeah.
but what I've noticed is it really gets their attention and in a good way, you know, to where like we can talk about serious stuff and we're also, you know, bantering, which I think is such a it's a powerful way that I
Right.
think
You
just
watch Bill Maher?
do I watch what?
Bill Maher?
No, I don't. And I don't have anything against him. I just don't have HBO.
Oh,
He's on
okay.
HBO, right? Yeah.
Okay. So check this out. I love him, and the reason I love him is because not only does he think critically and teach the country how to think, but he does it through comedy. When you do something through shock value or comedy, you remember it. The same way you remember the words to a song, okay? You just do, okay? But yet, for your test, you can't do it. But sing the words that you have to remember for the test to your favorite song, and you get an A, right? It's just the way people learn.
That makes sense. So people are always gonna have always are gonna learn more if they're having fun and doing it, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Just makes it that much more fun. And it makes
Yeah.
it, yeah. I don't know the science behind that, but I know, you know, me personally and, you know, just other people that we coach, like anytime I coach people, like I always tell people, I'm like, you know, especially one-on-one clients, I'm like, there's going to be parts of this that are going to be really hard, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. If we're not having fun, then we need to reinvent this thing. Cause I love to have fun and even banter with my clients because they learn more. They just do better with that. Um, Man, this has been so cool. I've really really enjoyed this. Um, I want to make sure that you know people can follow you or connect with you if they want to, based on what we've talked about today. What is the best way for people to do that?
Hey, Krista, what's the best way for people to reach me?
We're gonna get Krista involved.
Well, Krista's my everything. So
I I know you have a Krista, I have a Jamie. So
you have a Jamie?
I have a Jamie. Jamie is she's been my assistant for almost 7 years. I don't.
Let me see Jamie because my ex-wife's name was Jamie. Actually, if it was my ex-wife, she would have run out of your thing by now.
Yeah.
Get in the shot.
Hey, by the way, Rich, like how often do you work out, man? My God, your arms, dude. Like how often do you hit the gym?
Well, the gym's in the next room, and I hit the gym every morning for a half hour to
Yeah,
wake up.
man. Dude, he's got some serious guns there. That's
Yeah,
cool. So yeah.
I'm overweight. I'm on a seafood diet. I see it and I eat it. Tell them where you can reach me, baby.
I feel like the easiest thing might just be like on Instagram might be the
Okay.
best.
He's
For
just
like
he's
messages
just
or
gonna post this. So just give him the Richard Tate official on TikTok and the other
yeah, I
one.
can send all
Just-
the
No, he wants to hear it so that they can
Yeah, you
say,
can just say it. Krista, you are now a part of the show.
Jesus.
She's totally embarrassed. I
No,
don't think.
she's Canadian. Okay.
Okay. Richard, it's Richard Tate's official on Instagram.
And Tate is spelled T-A-I-T.
Yeah.
So it's Richard Tate. Richard Tate, not
Richard,
dot Tate.
it's not dot Tate.
Richard Tate official on Instagram. You can tell I'm always on this thing. Well, because you know
Right.
why? Because every time I get a like, I mean, my pleasure center is so good that I just have to keep doing it over.
Sepco. Yeah. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. TikTok is Richard dot Tate.
Richard dot Tate official,
Nope, just Richard.
just Richard dot Tate
All
on
right.
TikTok. And
Guys,
then on YouTube, you can go to We're Out of Time. That's my podcast. Okay. And I hope you'll return the favor one day because you're as cool as they come, man.
oh,
You're
thanks, man.
you're cool and you're a dad. And yeah, I'm glad I met you today.
I'm glad I met you too. This was awesome. I loved it. And you know, I'll take your compliment all day long of me being 35. Like that's awesome.
Dude, you look
I
you look 35.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'm not
Uh,
trying to creep with you, so you know I'm telling the truth.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, you're not going to have to look far. We'll have all those links in the show notes for you. Head on over to thedadedge.com/507 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/507 for this show. My hope is, guys, and I know it's not my hope. I know Rich gave you guys some amazing, amazing information today. And all those links will be in the show notes. But most importantly, how to have this conversation with your kids, but making sure that we connect with them. We have to connect without the connection, we've got zero influence. You can have all the conversations all day long about drugs or alcohol use or whatever else. Not connect to your kids, it's going to fall on deaf ears. But Rich, thanks so much for coming on today, man. This was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed this talk. And man, I wish you the best. You're doing really, really good work in the world.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You bet, brother. Talk to you soon.